How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel of the Buff Nerd. The last video I made, we talked about the Network Plus. We talked about if whether or not it is worth it, and if so, who would it be worth it for? This video is going to be talking about the CCNA. I'm going to do some mild comparisons between the two certs. This video is going to talk about if whether or not, in my opinion, the CCNA is worth it. I'm also going to talk about some of the things that the CCNA has helped me with when it comes to interviews, when it comes to my resume, getting bites when it comes to jobs, and everything along those lines. So, the CCNA. I'll give you a brief overview of myself, and I'm going to talk about when I obtained the CCNA and how it has helped me when it comes to my career period. So, if you don't know, my name is Brendan, aka the Buff Nerd. I'm currently a Tier 2 network engineer contracted to the Air Force, doing a bunch of cool networking stuff and, getting a lay of the land when it comes to being a network engineer. I have 4 industry standard certifications: CompTIA A+, Sec+, Network Plus, and I also have the CCNA, and what soon will be the first half of the CCNP. Yeah, so the CCNA. The CCNA is the Cisco Certified Network Associate Certification. It is one of the vendor-specific certifications you can get with Cisco, which I could probably say is one of the most relevant networking certifications you can get. The people that dive more down the network side of things, in most cases, always gets the CCNA, or they strongly consider getting it because Cisco is just everywhere as far as their network equipment is concerned. So, is the CCNA worth it? Now, this is my personal opinion. I know there's some people out there that are not big fans of Cisco, but for me personally, the CCNA was absolutely worth it. The reason why I say it's worth it is because it helped me land a job as a network admin, and I didn't even have the certification yet. Let me give you a little bit more detail. So, the beginning of my career, I went from intern to the help desk. I was on the help desk for about a year. During this year, I was studying for the CCNA and also the Security Plus. I was studying for them both at the same time. The Security Plus, I had already studied for it previously prior to thinking about the CCNA. So, I was going back and forth between the certs, and I planned on getting them both. But I was studying for both of these certs. Now, it wasn't like a hardcore studying every day. It was kind of a gradually studying during my downtime, getting familiar with doing some network configurations, understanding VLANs, understanding routing protocols, and things along those lines. At this point in my career, I pretty much decided that I was pretty sure that I was going to go down the networking path, and after about a year on the help desk, I started wanting a little bit more of a challenge, because everybody knows that it's on the help desk. The work is very repetitive, and at times, you can get very bored if you keep, doing the same thing over and over again, and you'll just get tired of answering phone calls and telling people to plug their stuff in. But I digress. Anyways, the point is, when I hit that year mark on the help desk, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start looking for some network admin roles. At that point in my career, I had the A+, the Net Plus, and the Sec Plus. I didn't have the CCNA yet, but I did have a lot of the knowledge that was needed in order to pass it. I was kind of just zeroing in and getting geared up to take the test. And while doing that, I managed to get the opportunity to interview for a network admin role. And this network admin role, I was extremely excited when I got the opportunity. I'm like, yes, I want to do the interviews. Let's get it going. There was a 3-step interview process when it came to this network admin role, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, you know what? I think it was, there's 3 steps. First, there was a technical interview, and this is an interview with the recruiter. This recruiter read off a list of questions, and she had the list of answers. She's not very technically inclined. She's just kind of designed to be that first filter to see if you really know your stuff. And this is where some of those questions I talked about with the Network Plus came in handy, where she asked, oh, well, what port is DNS? Or, what is a VLAN? Name 3 routing protocols. How many hosts are in a Class D subnet? A lot of those questions were some of the questions that I was asked during this first interview. Of course, like I told you, the Network Plus prepared me for this, and since I had already been studying the CCNA, everything was golden. Knocked that interview out of the park. So I was like, okay, knocked out the first interview. I pretty much got this in the bag. So here comes the second technical interview. Now, after the first technical interview, she said, all right, that was the first technical interview. The next interview is going to be technical, but it's going to be a little bit more in depth. We're going to have one of our network engineers interview you and ask you some questions to see, where your knowledge base is. And I was like, okay, fantastic. All is fair in love and war. Hit me with the best questions you got. So this is the thing. I got a little too big-headed. That first interview, I got a little too comfortable. So I'm like, what they were asking me, I might not need to study as hard for this next interview process. So I did a little bit of studying here and there. I hopped on Google, I hopped on YouTube to see if I can find some information on some of the questions that they may ask. And on YouTube, it was a lot of questions that I was asked during the first interview. So I'm like, oh man, if he's gonna ask me these kind of questions, it's gonna be easy, similar to all the questions that I just said. So the second interview comes up, I'm talking to the network engineer. This is the head network engineer at this particular department with this company. This is live and in person, and so he's looking me in my eyes. This isn't over the phone like the first interview, and he starts asking questions. Here are some of the questions went. The questions started out pretty easy. They started off real short and real sweet. There were questions like, what is the OSI model? And the OSI model is, of course, layer 1 is physical link, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, application. So after he asked that first question, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a walk in the park. And the questions, slowly but surely got progressively harder. Next question was, and these questions aren't spot on, but they're just kind of me spitballing and going off of what I can remember. Next question was, which layer does IP address communication occur? And of course, IP communication specifically occurs at the network layer. After that, he would dive a little bit deeper. He's like, okay, on a router, what command would you enter in order to view the routing table? And back then I wasn't as experienced as I am now. So I was like, oh man, I didn't expect him to say that. So, I had to, look around for a little bit. I had to think. And I was like, I believe it is show IP route. And that was correct. But, of course, I just wasn't sure. But I'm like, oh man, so this is getting a little bit more in depth. Now he's asking me about commands. The next question was a little bit more open-ended. He said, name 3 different routing protocols. And out of the 3, which one is your favorite? And after you name your favorite, explain that routing protocol. So here I'm like, what? I wasn't ready for this. So when I heard this question, I was a little startled. I'm like, oh man, he's asking some serious stuff. At this time, I didn't really have a favorite because, I didn't have a network admin job prior to this. I was on the help desk. I've studied the theory behind routing protocols, but I don't necessarily have a favorite. So I kind of just said, okay, OSPF is my favorite. That's one of the main routing protocols that's talked about in the CCNA. And I did the best I could to elaborate on OSPF. OSPF is a link state routing protocol. It creates an entire map with all of the networking devices. It has a backbone, which is area 0. Like I just started going into what? Yes, I can unpause your movie, sweetheart. Sorry about that. So I just started spitballing and going into detail as much as I could at the time about OSPF. And, I tried my hardest to explain how it's better than EIGRP and RIP version 2 and all of that good stuff. All right, the next question was this. Traffic is sent to a router. It's sent to a very particular IP address, but there is no route inside of that router to this specific IP address that this traffic is being sent to. And on that particular router, there is no default gateway configured. What happens to that traffic? And you would have to go into detail talking about what would happen on that particular router. I'm not going to do it right now, for the sake of time. But long story short, that was one of the questions that they asked. As you can see, these questions are a lot more in depth than just the surface scratchers that I talked about in the last Network Plus video. After that, he asked the same thing again, but he asked what would happen to that traffic if it happened to a switch. Now, 2 completely different things happen. If you're in networking, you know the difference. Give me 1 second, I gotta turn on my kids' TV show. Come on. Hey Adam, go tell Adam to get the iPad and bring it here. We build it while we fly it. Boom. All right. My daughter should be good. Okay, so they asked about 10 questions. I'll go over a couple of more just to give you guys, a little bit more of a frame of reference. But the next question was like this. They're like, okay, so a customer called in and his computer is connected to an access switch. His device, for some reason, does not have network connectivity. but all of the other employees in his surrounding area do have network connectivity. What will be your steps in troubleshooting when it comes to trying to figure out what the issue is? Go step by step. I'll make a video after this talking about some of the answers to some of these questions and, give you guys more information when it comes to that. But essentially, these are the kind of questions that they were asking when it came to my network admin role. And it was a little unsettling, I won't lie. For the most part, I did okay. I didn't do the greatest, in my opinion. I felt like I knew the answer to a lot of the questions, but because I stumbled over some of the questions, and I didn't seem as confident. To me, I thought I bombed it. But fortunately, they called me back and they made me an offer. And that's what led to my first network admin role. And I didn't even have the CCNA. This is all stuff that I was just studying, and I was getting geared up as much as possible so that I could take it. That alone should show you the huge difference in depth when it comes to the Network Plus versus the CCNA. The CCNA not only gives you a foundation because it covers subnetting and IP addresses just like the Network Plus. The new CCNA covers like wireless security, same as the Network Plus back when I took it. The new CCNA even touches on automation and JSON and a range of different tools like Ansible and Chef that could potentially get someone interested in becoming a DevOps engineer. Long story short, the CCNA versus the Network Plus, they are in two completely different ballparks. The Network Plus is simply the basics, to get you an understanding of what everything is, to get you to understand all of the terminology and, the order of operations, versus the CCNA, where it shows you what's being configured, how it's being configured, where particular network devices fall when it comes to how an enterprise network is set up and how to troubleshoot everything. So CCNA, hands down, an extremely valuable certification. One thing that I failed to mention in the last video was that both of these certs actually, when it comes to getting government jobs, for the people that don't know, the government side has a criteria when it comes to how important the certification is on the government side. The DoD has a list of approved baseline certifications, and it shows where they fall and could potentially determine how much you would get paid when it comes to jobs that you are applying for on the government side. If I'm not mistaken, the Network Plus falls in the IDT level 1, which is the very first level. There's 3 levels in total. The Security Plus falls in the IAT level 2 category. So does the CCNA. So if you're on the government side of things and you want to become a network engineer or a network admin, the 2 certifications that they almost want you to have no matter what would be the Security Plus and the CCNA. All things considered, be it on in the private sector or on the government side, the Network Plus and the CCNA are in 2 completely different ballparks. The Network Plus is the basics. It's to get you to understand the terminology. It's to get you to understand the what's, who's, where's, and all that good stuff. Cables, standards. The CCNA is about configuration, making sure that a network functions properly as far as routing and switching is concerned. It's about troubleshooting those issues in the event that someone has some sort of network connectivity, or for some reason one site can't reach another, or anything along those lines. The CCNA just all around give you more practical experience. You'll have more of an idea of your day-to-day tasks as an admin or an engineer with the CCNA than you will with the Network Plus. When coming up with this video and the last video that I made about the Network Plus, these are the things that I considered when it came to whether or not these certifications were worth it. It all depends on where you are in your career. If you're new, the Network Plus can help you establish a foundation, help you understand the fundamentals, and could potentially help you on some interviews when it comes to those very low tier roles when it comes to the network side of things, like being a NOC analyst or a network technician or something along those lines. The CCNA, to be completely honest, if you study the CCNA hard enough, if you just understand the material thoroughly enough, you could be an engineer with just the CCNA itself. A lot of the engineers that I work alongside had the CCNA and nothing higher. And those different engineers had different recommendations on if whether or not you should get the CCNP, which is the professional level cert of the CCNA. Some of them said, don't worry about it. Other ones said that do it, it'll help your resume stay nice and it'll keep you looking amazing as far as the job market is concerned. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like the CCNA is worth it? Do you feel like the Network Plus is worth it? Feel free to comment in the section below with your opinions, and I'll be more than happy to hear them and, have a productive back and forth talking about, your experiences versus mine. If you like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you have any other ideas as far as videos you want me to make, feel free to let me know. I'm also planning on doing a video in the next week or two, and it's going to be a deeper dive on those interview questions that I talked about when it came to landing that network admin role that I landed a while back. That's all I got for you guys today. As always, stay safe, stay positive, learn everything, network, and you know the rest.